Little Ukraine in New York City. New York City is home to over 120,000 Ukrainians, making it the largest Ukrainian population in the United States. Over 20,000 Ukrainians live in this neighborhood of the East Village, which has become known as Little Ukraine. As we watch the horrible events on the news of Putin invading Ukraine, I thought now would be a really great time to shine a light on Ukrainian culture here in New York City. And it's come to my attention that a lot of people didn't even know that Little Ukraine existed. And even as a licensed New York City tour guide, I've realized that I could explore this neighborhood even more. I'm going to link in the comments below some organizations that you can donate to help out the people of Ukraine. If you like videos like this, make sure that you let me know in the comments below and make sure that you click subscribe.
Yeah, Muffin Talk. Ooh, Muffin Talk. Muffin Talks, bringing healing to those who need it most.
New York City has always been a city of immigrants. The first wave of Ukrainian immigrants to New York City really came between 1870 and 1890, with a second wave coming in after World War II and a third wave coming in the 1970s. Now, when immigrants come to New York City, a lot of them don't speak the language that most of us in New York City speak, which tends to be English. A lot of them will eat different foods than what were considered American foods at the time that they immigrated over, and a lot of them worshipped a different religion. In the 1800s, really, New York City was considered like a Protestant city. So when these immigrants came, they were looking for a sense of community. They were looking for a place where people spoke their language, where people ate their foods, and where people worshipped their religion. So oftentimes a church became the center of that immigrant culture. So I am standing in front of St. George Ukrainian Catholic Church. This actual building wasn't constructed until the 1970s, but the parish dates back to 1905, and it's been sort of the center of Ukrainian culture here in Little Ukraine since that parish was created in 1905. Today you can see how important this church is to Ukrainian culture. We have the sort of memorial set up for everything that's happening in Ukraine. And throughout just the couple minutes that we've been filming, we've had people coming in and out speaking Ukrainian. So you can really tell that this is the center of the culture. So just like it was when the immigrants first came over in the 1800s, the church is still the center of Ukrainian life here in New York City today. St. George Ukrainian Catholic Church is located at the intersection of 7th or East 7th Street and Taras Shevchenko Place. Now, Taras Shevchenko was a Ukrainian writer, and he was a huge champion of Ukrainian independence in the early 1800s. And he had a dream about an independent Ukraine, and he actually dreamed that it would be led by a Ukrainian version of George Washington. Now, to show you how incorporated Ukrainian culture is in this neighborhood of the East Village, across the street from St. George Ukrainian Catholic Church, we have McSorley's Old Ale House, established in 1854, and arguably the oldest, if not one of the oldest, bars that's been continually operating here in New York City. It's very Irish if you go in, but you will notice that there is a Ukrainian flag flying above McSorley's Old Ale House right now. This is because it's so ingrained in the culture that this has so many Ukrainian people living here, and one of the bartenders at McSorley's, who goes by Pepe and has been working there for 40 years, is actually from Ukraine, showing you how Ukrainian culture is in every single corner of this neighborhood. The Ukrainian Museum is the largest of its kind in the United States that is dedicated to preserving and exhibiting and kind of analyzing and interpreting Ukrainian culture throughout the years, especially since the Ukrainians started to immigrate into New York City in the 1800s. So it has artifacts ranging from pieces of folk art to photographs and documents. They also offer some educational programs and some really fun activities, such as learning how to bake Ukrainian Easter bread and learning how to decorate Ukrainian Easter eggs. Let's go inside and see what's indoors. The Ukrainian Museum in New York City offers 3 floors of exhibits. The museum was founded in 1976 by the Ukrainian National Women's League of America and moved into its current building in 2005. The museum has 3 main categories of exhibits: folk art, fine art, and the museum's archives. The folk art features over 8,000 items, ranging from wedding attire from various regions of Ukraine, woven textiles, wood carving, metalwork, and of course, an impressive collection of Ukrainian Easter eggs. I remember trying to make these once as a kid, and let's just say that mine didn't look at all like these masterpieces. Hopefully I'll be able to attend one of the museum's Easter egg painting classes. The archives feature over 30,000 items, including photographs, documents, letters, even playbills. All of these document the history and cultural legacy of the Ukrainian people. The Fine Arts collection features over 3,000 paintings and sculptures by notable Ukrainian artists. Some of the art even features costume sketches and fabric swatches from theatrical productions, like this sketch for the ballet Romeo and Juliet. Entrance when we went was only $8 per person, and it was worth every penny. Definitely visit if you're in the East Village. Since 1951, Arka has been a store here in Little Ukraine that sells Eastern European items, including items from Ukraine. So they have all sorts of stuff. They're closed today. They're closed on Sundays, so we can't go inside today, but you can see just in the window. They have everything from like necklaces, headpieces, and traditional Ukrainian clothing. Now, something that I saw on their website, they were talking about what makes a specific Ukrainian pattern. So if we look up in the window, here we have this beautiful white shirt that has these very geometric shapes, and that's something that's very distinctively Ukrainian. And they said that the different colors of these patterns are special to different Ukrainian regions. So here we have the white shirt, and then on the other side of the window, we have a blue shirt. So these would be 2 different regions of Ukraine based on the information on their website. So coming to Arka would be a great way to learn more about Ukrainian culture here in New York City and also support Ukrainians in New York City. Across the street from me is Veselka, which is a Ukrainian restaurant. It's known for having amazing pierogies, and it's actually quite a New York City staple. It's such a staple that Blair Waldorf in Gossip Girl even dined at Veselka once. Now, it was actually my intention to go and sit down and order some pierogies and show you them. But if you look across the way, you will see there is a huge wait today. And it's New York City, so we do have some sirens. So as across the way, you will see that there is a huge wait to get into Veselka. There's a huge Ukrainian flag outside. There's a news crew outside. And as we go to take a closer look, I just want to point out that this is the support that the Ukrainian community has here in the East Village. So Veselka, where we will not be getting our pierogies today, but when you come to New York City, I do strongly encourage you to drop in. And we can see, I just want to show you some scope of how long this line is today. It says, please wait to be seated.
Every week, raw or more.
So this is just the love that New York City has for Ukraine today. While Veselka was very, very busy today, I do want to point out that coming here on a Sunday, I kind of knew it was just going to be crowded, even if it was a normal Sunday, because it's so popular. So this is Ukrainian culture really coming to New York City and thriving. Ukrainians really have their own country and their own culture, and we love to celebrate it here in New York City. This favorite East Village dive bar is called Blue and Gold. It gets its name from the colors of the Ukrainian flag, blue and gold. Now, a fun fact about this bar is after Russia seized Crimea, they actually stopped selling all liquor that was actually owned by Russian companies. So if you go here, you're not going to find Russian vodka, and you can probably spend an entire night inside of Blue and Gold and never hear a word of Ukrainian. But this is owned by generations of Ukrainian immigrants, and the culture of Ukraine is very, very strong inside of Blue and Gold. You can see that Ukrainian spirit is very, very strong here in New York City and in the area of the East Village known as Little Ukraine. I hope that this sort of mini tour gave you some ideas of how you can experience Ukrainian culture when you come to visit New York City. So we visited St. George Ukrainian Catholic Church. We visited the Ukrainian Museum. We visited Arca, a store where you can buy Ukrainian items. And we visited two places where you can eat and get a drink. We visited Veselka and Blue and Gold, so you can eat and get a drink celebrating Ukrainian culture. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you have a favorite place in Little Ukraine in New York City that I should visit or that anyone else should visit to help celebrate Ukrainian culture. It's very clear that this is something that we in the United States love here. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you learned something, and make sure that you check out the comments below so you can donate to some organizations that are helping those in Ukraine who need help. Thank you again for watching, and make sure that you click subscribe.